Man of Steel is already one of the most polarizing superhero movies that has come out in a long time. Critical reception has been very mixed. Some fans have loved the movie while others have hated it. Unfortunately, I have to say that Man of Steel was a major disappointment for me. I have to warn you that I give full spoilers in this review, so if you have not seen the movie yet, please do not watch any further. The acting is solid pretty much all around. Any gripes I have with the characters in this film are more about the writing than the performances. From the time Amy Adams was announced as Lois Lane, I had my doubts. After watching Man of Steel, I still believe that she was miscast. Don't get me wrong, I like Amy Adams. I think she's a good actress and with the help of a better script could have been a pretty decent Lois. However, her soft voice doesn't really fit the character, and even in the few Lois Lane-esque moments when she shows some attitude, Adams lacked the kind of spark that makes Lois a fun character to watch. Casting Henry Cavill was the best decision this movie made. He has a great voice for the character. The way he speaks and carries himself overall is very dignified. Cavill's performance as Superman definitely conveys a sense of power. However, like the rest of this movie, it lacks warmth. He's not stoic 100% of the time, but his version of the character didn't have the comforting presence that Superman should. The action and visual effects are great. For me, the visual highlights of the film were the beautiful opening scenes on Krypton. While the movie did deliver the kind of big-budget action scenes Superman fans have been waiting for, it got a bit tiresome toward the end. My main gripe with the visual aesthetic of this film is the washed-out color palette. A lot of the movie just had a very drab, lifeless look to it. When it comes down to it, I'm all about story. Tell me a good story and I can forgive quite a bit. Man of Steel doesn't really do much with the Superman origin story that other versions haven't done more effectively. In the hopes of making my arguments clear, I've separated them into general areas I had issues with. The Kents. Throughout most of Superman's history, Jonathan and Martha Kent have been held as the character's moral foundation. Man of Steel's version of the Kents are certainly good, caring parents. However, the movie didn't convince me that the way the Kents raised Clark would make him a much better person than the average man. In fact, I felt that Jonathan's talk with Clark after he saved the lives of the kids on the bus seemed like it discouraged Clark's natural concern for the well-being of others. When Clark questions if he was supposed to just let the people on the bus die, Jonathan tells him, maybe. What? I understand the point Jonathan was making about what the revelation of Clark's powers would mean to the world, but he didn't really explain why preventing this turn of events might be worth the deaths of several people. Jonathan talks as if he's concerned about the greater good, but overall he seems more concerned about protecting his son, which is any parent's highest priority. That said, the Kents are supposed to be these amazing parents who protect their son and manage to teach him to be a great man. While their caring and protection were evident, their teaching and guiding left much to be desired. Jonathan's maybe represents a moral uncertainty that doesn't seem befitting of the man who raised Superman. Superman is idealistic with a clear sense of right and wrong. Here, in Clark's formative years, his conscience told him that saving lives was more important than keeping his own secret. Jonathan's response to the situation doesn't help Clark to be more sure of himself and trust his own judgment. Quite the opposite. The takeaway message from Clark's talk with his father seems more like it would steer him away from being Superman, rather than serve as an important milestone on the journey toward that destiny. Given adult Clark's lifestyle at the beginning of the story, it would seem that Jonathan Kent succeeded in guiding his son away from doing something special with his life. So who is the man Jonathan and Martha Kent raised? He's a good person, but the movie doesn't do a good job of showing him to be the extraordinarily good person that Superman should be. When I watch the early scenes of Captain America, the First Avenger, I feel like there's something very special about Steve Rogers. Through both his actions and his words, it's clear that this character is remarkably courageous and pure-hearted. Man of Steel's Clark Kent doesn't really feel like a remarkable person, and it's partially because we don't get to see his parents teaching him to be that. Clark's emotional journey. As the origin movie, Man of Steel shouldered the responsibility of communicating what Superman is all about. In order to do this, the audience needed to understand who Clark Kent is and connect with him. Great superhero origin movies are stories of personal growth. You begin with a character that is lacking something, then show that character's struggle to attain whatever it is that is missing from his life. One of the problems with Man of Steel is that it's not clear what Clark wants at the beginning of this film. When we see Clark on the fishing boat, he's just a lonely man wandering the world, trying to lie low. He's dissatisfied with this life, but he doesn't have any clear aspirations. Compare this to Batman Begins, in which Bruce Wayne clearly states, "I seek a means to fight injustice." This pursuit is what the entire first half of the movie is about, culminating in Bruce's first appearance as Batman. By contrast, the wandering Clark Kent happens to find out that the military is digging up an alien spacecraft. He makes his way onto the spacecraft and encounters the Jor-el artificial intelligence, who explains the backstory, presents Clark with the Superman costume, and tells him that he can guide humanity as a symbol of hope. Now Clark is Superman. The problem is that Clark putting on the Superman costume doesn't really feel like a culmination of any sort of journey. What changes has adult Clark gone through that have made him a better, stronger man than the person we saw in the fishing boat? How has he earned this? Clark spent years lying low and not using his powers for any great purpose because his adopted father wanted it that way. Now he's going to dramatically alter his lifestyle. He's going to put on a colorful costume and attempt to become a symbol, because his biological father told him to. Let's analyze this. I believe the Superman origin works best as a coming-of-age story that depicts Clark's decision to put on a costume and help people as that of a man who has discovered his life's purpose. Man of Steel sort of does this. However, this version of the origin doesn't fully work as the story of a man coming into his own, because Clark Kent is only able to break free of the confines of a life governed by the wishes of one father by beginning a life guided by the hopes of another. What does Clark want? What has all this wandering led him to realize about his place in the world? How does he intend to help humanity? This leads me to my next point. Superman the symbol. For years I found the idea of doing a new Superman origin movie very appealing, partially because of the possibility of realistically exploring how the world would react to the debut of someone like Superman. Stories like Birthright and Secret Origin have taken this angle and shown Clark Kent struggling to make Superman into a symbol of hope that people can trust. Man of Steel feels like it's going in this direction, then it alters course. Jor-el tells Clark that he can be a force for good and guide the human race to be a better people. This sets up for Clark to take his new costume and attempt to become this beacon of hope. But before Clark can make his costume debut or even decide how exactly he wants to go about making a difference, Zod and the other Kryptonians come onto the scene. It's almost like we've jumped to the conflict of the sequel. Think about any of the best superhero origin movies. The protagonist goes on a journey that leads him to become a superhero in order to follow a certain personal calling. Then there's some time to begin establishing himself as he comes into this role before he's faced with the main threat. Man of Steel does not give Clark any time to establish some sort of public identity before he is swept into this conflict with Zod. In one of the flashbacks, Jonathan Kent tells young Clark that he's the answer to "Are we alone in the universe?" In most versions of the story, Superman provides that answer to the whole world, instantly making his public debut one of the most significant events in human history. In Man of Steel, Zod communicates to the people of Earth before Superman does anything, stripping away most of what could have been done in a story about the world reacting to its first alien/superhero. Like Batman, Superman is one of the characters whose status as a symbol is almost as important as his actions. By attracting so much attention by the nature of what he can do and embodying noble ideals such as kindness and selflessness, Superman serves as an inspiration. Batman Begins showed Bruce Wayne succeeding in making Batman into a symbol, and what he was able to accomplish in a short time as a result of this. Man of Steel's conflict didn't allow for Clark to even begin making Superman into a symbol, which misses a fundamental part of the character's story. To put it simply, there's something very wrong with a Superman origin movie in which the character doesn't inspire people. The Last Son of Krypton. Aside from the issue of the other Kryptonians distracting from the debut of Superman within the world of the movie, I feel that bringing them in as the threat for the first movie lessens the dramatic impact of their arrival. From a character journey standpoint, I find that it makes the most sense to have Clark coming to terms with his place in the world over the course of the first movie, by accepting that he is unique, but realizing that he doesn't necessarily have to be isolated because of this. After the audience has watched this and settled into the idea that Superman is the last survivor of the Kryptonian race, it would be pretty dramatic to introduce another Kryptonian later on, because it's a major shift from what they've come to see as one of the most fundamental facts about Superman and his story. Therefore, the revelation of a character like Zod or Supergirl in a second or third movie potentially carries much more weight. I also think that starting smaller and saving a conflict of this magnitude for later would help to give the series somewhere to go. Since much of the appeal of this franchise comes from the spectacle, raising the stakes and delivering something on a grander scale moving forward helps to build the excitement. Right from the beginning, we had a villain as powerful as Superman that threatened the entire human race. Even with a more powerful villain like Brainiac or Darkseid, you can't really present a more serious threat. If they shifted the Zod conflict to the second movie, I really believe that several aspects of that plot would have been enhanced. A battle to save humanity feels more epic if Superman has already established himself as the world's protector. Superman fighting Zod over Metropolis carries more weight if he has made this place his home. Then there's the conclusion to that fight. Many have debated whether or not it was appropriate to have Superman kill Zod. Some say it's out of character and that he would have found a way to end it without resorting to that. Others cite examples of times when Superman is killed before and point out that killing Zod was for the greater good. I don't think you can look at this as a simple question of should he have killed Zod or not. The better question is, should Superman have killed anyone in the first movie? And the answer is no. As I argued earlier, the focus of this movie should have been on Superman establishing himself as a symbol of hope and giving people an ideal to strive toward. Look at Batman Begins. Oddly enough, this Batman origin movie is more hopeful than the Superman origin movie we were just given. Bruce Wayne begins his war on crime, and the story establishes that he intends to operate on a no-killing policy. In the end, he's able to win a major victory, and he does so while adhering to his own ideals. Imagine a Superman origin movie that works in a similar way and puts an emphasis on how important the preservation of life is to the character. If you keep the character untainted for almost 2 whole movies, the moment when he breaks from his moral code and is forced to kill becomes much more powerful. As much as I believe that the first movie should have done a smaller scale conflict with Lex Luthor as the main villain, it would be pretty close-minded to think that there is no way of making a very good first movie with Zod as the antagonist. Part of the problem with the execution of Man of Steel is that it didn't really feel like the writers attempted to use the conflict with the Kryptonians as a way of exploring Clark's internal struggle. This is a story partly about Clark Kent overcoming his feelings of loneliness and isolation. Aside from the decision to destroy the Genesis Chamber, this story didn't capitalize on the opportunity to use the Kryptonians to appeal to Clark's desire for a sense of belonging. Given the loss of Jonathan Kent and the absence of Jor-el, Zod would have made for a much more interesting villain if he attempted to manipulate Superman by positioning himself as a replacement father figure. Going from there, we still have the issue of the film not really exploring Clark's process of figuring out how to help humanity. If Zod wants to rule Earth, he could appeal to Clark's desire to be a force for good, by suggesting that they lead the people and use their power to fix the world. At first, Superman goes along with this, since he's in search of purpose and Zod seems to be helping people. Then, as he realizes Zod's true intention is to make himself a dictator, he breaks away from the other Kryptonians and must figure out a way to defeat them. I think this direction for the story could have been a good explanation for why Superman chooses to help the world by serving as an example for others to follow, rather than forcefully making the world into what he wants it to be. It's certainly not my ideal Superman origin story, but I think it provides a more interesting conflict and character journey than Man of Steel. The Daily Planet. The final scene of the movie features Clark Kent assuming the disguise of his mild-mannered reporter persona and joining the staff of the Daily Planet. I understand the idea of holding off on bringing Clark fully into his role as Superman by saving the dual identity until the movie's final moments. It certainly does help to make the Man of Steel unique among Superman movies. However, I feel that the negatives of this approach outweigh the positives. The dual identity is a huge part of the character, so a movie that doesn't really address it fully is only selling part of the concept. Special effects technology is now at the point where it's not really that difficult of a feat to make moviegoers believe a man can fly. However, a movie that can make people believe a man can put on glasses and become unrecognizable would be pretty impressive. I really wanted to see the construction of the various aspects of this persona, such as the appearance, personality, and mannerisms. I'd be a bit more forgiving if Man of Steel delivered a mild-mannered reporter persona that really felt like a different person. However, the Clark Kent we see in the movie's final moments just seems like pretty much the same guy with glasses on. He's not wearing loose-fitting clothes to disguise his muscular build. He hasn't adjusted the pitch of his speaking voice. He's just the same Clark Kent, wearing glasses. Also, unless I'm mistaken, the movie makes no mention of Clark having a background in journalism before getting a job as a reporter at a major newspaper. Because Clark wasn't at the Daily Planet throughout the movie, we didn't get to see him develop relationships with anyone on the staff aside from Lois. As a result, Man of Steel doesn't really give us a cast of supporting characters to be interested in seeing more of. The presence of a more light-hearted character like Jimmy Olsen would have been very welcome in this assortment of serious characters. In a way, not showing Clark as part of that familiar ensemble of characters held Man of Steel back as a Superman adaptation. While freshness is important, there's something nice about having that familiarity too. I also find it disappointing that we won't get to see the classic Superman-Lois love story play out, since Man of Steel has Lois discovering Clark's secret pretty early on. Even if they didn't want to keep Lois oblivious, they could have gone the Iron Man route and not put the characters together romantically until the sequel. It's probably safe to assume after the cliché, climactic movie kiss they shared, that Clark and Lois are aware of their romantic feelings for each other. Now there's really no exciting anticipation of wondering when Lois will find out Clark's secret, or hoping to see them finally get together. Man of Steel didn't even have a proper romantic build-up within the story. There wasn't a definite chemistry or yearning on either side that would have given the audience a sense of satisfaction when they kissed near the end. To sum it up, Man of Steel rejects the classic Superman-Lois-Clark dynamic in favor of a bland romantic subplot that doesn't really give the writers much to play off of later on. And finally, here are some of my miscellaneous annoyances. Jor-el, a scientist, defeats Zod, a general, in hand-to-hand combat. The writers felt the need to have Zod kill Jor-el, even though Jor-el was going to die along with the rest of the planet in only a few hours. This just felt like contrived drama thrown in to give the audience a reason to hate Zod. Clark conveniently just happens to hear about the Kryptonian spaceship. What exactly was Jor-el's plan for the genetic codex? He gave Clark no means of locating the other Kryptonian ship that contained the Genesis chamber and the technology that enabled him to communicate with hologram Jor-el. Even so, unless I'm mistaken, the Genesis chamber would have just made a bunch of Kryptonian babies. What was Clark supposed to do with all these babies? Jonathan Kent's death was another scene that felt contrived. It just doesn't make sense to have Jonathan go back for the dog instead of Clark. If Jonathan believed himself capable of saving the dog, Clark could have done so without making any obvious use of his powers that would attract attention. While showing Lois's discovery of Clark's secret did earn her some credibility as an investigative reporter, my main thought afterward was, wow, Clark is screwed. If Lois can trace Clark back to Smallville by looking into reports that seem to involve a superpowered rescuer, wouldn't it be pretty easy for the government or Lex Luthor to do the same given the resources and technology at their disposal? The flashbacks could have been ordered and implemented better. It didn't necessarily need to present them chronologically, but the decision not to do so wasn't really justified by the end result. Batman Begins introduces us to adult Bruce Wayne near the beginning of the film, then uses the flashbacks to show how he got to that point. Man of Steel's flashbacks serve as a window into Clark's youth, but there's not really a culmination that bridges the flashbacks to the present in a way that makes us feel like we've seen all we need to. Unless I'm mistaken, after the tornado flashback, there's another flashback that seems like it would have occurred soon after the bus incident. Inserting another Clark-Jonathan scene after showing Jonathan's death is somewhat awkward. I also found that telling the audience that Jonathan had died before showing the flashback of his death lessened the drama of that scene. The first time we hear the word Superman, it is spoken by a random soldier. If they wanted to hold off on that moment for so much of the film, they should have made it worth the wait. Have it spoken by a significant character at an important moment. Superman tackles Zod from an open cornfield into a small town, bringing the fight there and placing the townspeople in unnecessary danger. Superman kisses Lois amidst the ruins of Metropolis, not seeming to be bothered by all the death and destruction that the city has suffered. As expected, the title Man of Steel doesn't really have anything to do with the plot or the themes of this movie. Given the significance of Kal-El being a naturally born Kryptonian, the title Superman, the Last Son of Krypton, or just The Last Son of Krypton would have made a lot more sense. Is Man of Steel an awful movie? No. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. However, as someone who has been waiting for a great Superman movie and can imagine everything this could have been, I find Man of Steel to be a great disappointment. Fortunately, the shortcomings of this movie aren't the type that would hold a sequel back from being a great Superman movie. I just hope the writers are aware of the weaknesses of this film and address them as they move forward. Thank you very much for watching my review. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, and tune in next time.